Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome back. We are going to do things a little bit differently today. We are not going to look in our Math Nation book. We're going to kind of go off the grid. So if you're in class, you should have access to a hard copy of a notes page. And if you're at home, you can print out the hard copy if you wish. Otherwise, just kind of follow along, draw your own notes if you can. All right, so we're looking at mid-segments of a triangle. So in your notes page, you have a blank there. This is what you're filling in the blank, a mid-segment of a triangle. It is going to connect the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. So like G and H, that is a mid-segment of a triangle, G to H. There are three mid-segments in one triangle. Okay. So it says, given that GH, GI, and HI, and I should have called them all segments. If they are mid-segments of triangle ABC, then AH is going to equal the value of 2x plus 16. So let me just go ahead and write that in there. And HC represents 6x. Okay, so I'm going to kind of walk you through some things that we've done in the past. First of all, back in the early days, I said geometry kind of really falls down to three different things when you're trying to calculate something. Do you add the items together to equal 180? Do you add the items together to equal 90 degrees? Or do you set them equal to each other? And that's going to play into this problem. So let's take what we know about a midpoint. So if I look at the midpoint G, a midpoint is going to cut a segment into two equal halves. So that means G is going to cut segment AB into two equal or congruent pieces. Okay. Point I is going to cut segment BC into two congruent pieces. And I'll go ahead and change the color so we can see it a little better. Point H is going to cut segment AC into two congruent pieces. So we need to find the length of HC. Okay, and we know that HC is equal to AH. So I'm going to use my algebra skills to be able to figure out what HC is by first finding out what X is. So I'm looking at these two segments, these two expressions that I have. Do I add them together and they equal 180? Or do I add them together and they equal 90 degrees? Or do they equal each other? Well, those congruency marks says that they are congruent to each other and congruent segments have equal measure. So what I know is that 2x plus 16 is going to equal 6x. So let's solve for x. I'm going to subtract 2x on each side. Solve for x. And x is equal to 4. But it asks for the length of HC. So what I'm going to do is just simply substitute. So 6 times 4 is equal to 24 units. And I should put HC. Okay, you're going to be doing some of those kinds of expressions on your homework tonight. Here's the next fill in the blank that you have. The triangle mid-segment theorem. Put that on that line that you have on your notes page. Okay, it says that a mid-segment of a triangle is parallel and half the measure of the non-intersected side. So I'm going to give you a second to go ahead and write triangle mid-segment theorem in. And then we're going to add some information, see what it's trying to tell us. Okay, it is saying that the mid-segment is parallel to its non-intersected side, which you know that if something is parallel, when you have a set of parallel lines, you have some equal measures going on there, right? You have some corresponding angles, you have some alternate interior angles. So think about what we've got going on here. Excuse me. So I know that this angle right here corresponds to this angle here. I also know that this angle over here would correspond to this one down here. And I also know, let's see if I can find a different color, that angle A is in two triangles. So I've got similar triangles going on here. So if I've got similar triangles, then I know that I have the corresponding angles are congruent. So what I'm trying to get at is you might have an opportunity today to find a missing angle. So for instance, let's say that angle G is 100 degrees and angle A is 50 degrees. Could you find out what angle C is? And sure you could, because you know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. And the sum of this is 150 degrees. So 180 minus 150 means that this angle right here is 30 degrees. Okay, those two pink dots there, they're both pink because we know that they are corresponding angles because those lines are parallel. And when we have corresponding angles, their measures are congruent. So we therefore know that angle C is also 30 degrees. You will see that today. Okay. Then the other part is it says that GH is half the measure of BC. So whenever you have a mid-segment, it is half the measure of its non-intersected side. Okay, so GH intersects side AB, it intersects side AC, but it does not intersect BC. It is half the length. So just for simplicity's sake, if BC were 20 units, what would GH be? If you said GH is 10 units, then you are correct. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the next part. All right. Given that points Q, R, and P are midpoints, determine which line segments in the given diagram are congruent. Okay, so first of all, I know that Q is a midpoint, right? So that means LQ is congruent to QN. All right, on that previous slide, we said that GH was a mid-segment, and therefore GH was half of BC. GH was the mid-segment, it was half of BC. So that means if RP is the mid-segment, it is half of LN, and LN is already broken up into two congruent parts. So I hope what you understand is that RP is also congruent to LQ. RP is also congruent to NQ, okay? Because it is half the length of its non-intercepted side. Let's work it again, but with a different point. Let's take a look at P. Okay, we know P is the midpoint. It breaks up segment MN into two congruent parts. MP is congruent to NP. Okay, and it is also congruent to RQ. All right, because RQ is parallel to MN, it is half the size of MN and half the size is going to be congruent to RQ. Let's do the last one. Point R is the midpoint of L and M. So that means LR is congruent to MR. Segment QP is going to be half the size of LM, which means it is congruent to LR as well as being congruent to MR. Let's put a tiny bit of math behind it. We have triangle ABC. We know that points J, K, and L are midpoints. We want to find KJ, CB, and KL. So I'm going to start with KJ first. So I need to find the length of KJ. Well, I know it's half the length of its non-intersected side. So I know it's half of that. Okay. Well, AB is 25, so half of AB is equal to 12 units. Let's try 12.5 units. Okay, so I should go ahead and put KJ. All right, let's see where CB is. Okay, we want to find the length of CB. Okay, well, I know that JB is 13. I know that J is a midpoint, so that means this is congruent to this. So in order to find CB, I know that CJ is going to equal BJ, so this is also going to be 13. So CB is going to equal 26 units. Okay, let's find KL. Okay, here's KL. And what I know about KL is that it is half of its non-intersected base. So here's the non-intersected base, and that base is 26. So KL must also be 13 units. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of fill the rest of this out so you can see what's going on here. I would know that this is 12.5 and this is 12.5. What else is 12.5? KJ. Okay, I know that a K is 10, which means that CK is also 10. Okay, so that means that the whole length of this is 20 units. And I would also know that, let's see, do the marks, that this would also be 10 units. Kind of a simple simple concept. Take your time as you go through the prep work. Not too many questions, and you have all week to do it. I know I am not on campus on Tuesday, January 5th, but I will be there the rest of the week. So just send me any questions that you have through my email or through Schoology. See you soon.